Matteo Ferri liked to imagine that the scooter underneath him was a peeled-back comet and that the streets of Rome were its golden tail. He needed such daydreams to survive his work, delivering envelopes, takeout, and occasionally suspicious padded packets to any address that paid. Every morning he wound through the capital's chaos, dodging tour buses, nuns with smartphones, and Fiat Pandas parked directly on crosswalks. The only constant in the madness, he believed, were the traffic lights. Red, amber, green. Endlessly repeating like a lullaby for ill-tempered drivers. On a stifling June afternoon, the lullaby glitched. Matteo had just exited Via dei Serpenti, box of Sicilian cannoli balanced on the rack behind him. The light at the junction with Via Cavour should have been red. Instead, all three lenses flickered in a staccato pattern. Cars halted anyway, but horns wailed as the drivers accused one another of not knowing the code. Matteo rolled to the front, amused, until the flickering assembled into something undeniably deliberate. He recognized it from a boyhood obsession with adventure novels. Morse code, dot dash dash dot, then dash dash dash, and so on. The letters spelled M-A-T-T-E-O. He felt the hair on his arms rise. It might be coincidence, maybe a faulty bulb, but how many faulty bulbs spelled his name? He put a tentative palm against the steel pole. It vibrated, not with electricity, but with a heartbeat. "Hurry along, ragazzo," an elderly cop barked, waving him through the intersection. The spell broke. Matteo gunned the throttle and escaped to deliver the cannoli. Yet for the rest of the day, every significant junction repeated the pattern. His name, then green. He began to feel guided, shepherded, by invisible hands through gaps in traffic that opened at the last possible second. By sunset, he had earned record tips and a splitting headache. That night he returned to the first light on Via Cavour. The tourists had thinned, and moonlight silvered the Colosseum's ribcage down the road. Matteo shut off the engine. The light immediately pulsed. His personal summons. He pressed his forehead to the pole. A presence spilled into his skull like cold wine. Swift thoughts, wing-beat quick. "You are seen, messenger of petrol and iron." "I'm just a courier," Matteo whispered, hoping any passerby would assume he carried a Bluetooth headset. "Who are you?" "Mercury, by those who swallow Greek tales." Matteo swallowed. "That makes you a god. Gods don't live in lampposts. Indeed, a poor apartment, but the circuit is still a circuit. Current is current. I was bound by engineers of a dead empire. Each lantern in this city holds one of us now." Matteo tried to keep up. "Trapped? Why?" To command order. All once we gwidded legions, trade routes, omens. Emperor Augustus grew jealous. He built shrines of glass and copper, stuffed us inside, said, "If I must bear the gods, let them at least tell my coaches when to stop." A dry, bitter laugh vibrated in the pool. 2,000 years changed little. Coaches became cars. Rome still worships convenience. Matteo pictured a pantheon of divinities blinking from traffic poles, and nearly giggled. "Why call me? Because some would free the wrong gods. I am the patron of travelers, traders, thieves of you. The shadow cabal seeks the warbringers. The warbringers? Mars, Bologna, Victoria intersections with crimson glass. If those lanterns shatter, the gods return full-formed, fed by rush-hour frenzy. Blood will follow. Help me stop them." Matteo scuffed a sneaker against the curb. "I'm a guy with a scooter, not Hercules. You are fast, and most importantly, invisible to history. Errors with capes attract drama. We require discretion. Tonight, receive instruction." The amber bulb flashed once, briefly revealing wings etched on the filament. Something like a map unfolded in Matteo's head. A network of intersections, timing diagrams, metro tunnels, sewer alleys. At its center glowed Tomini Station Rome's concrete hive where 3 principal arteries converged. each holding a lantern rumoured to house Mars. The cabal will strike at the evening rush. Tomorrow 100 hours. Prepare. Then the pole fell silent. The light resumed ordinary cycling as if embarrassed. Matteo rode home, shaking, the map still scorching his thoughts. He barely slept. Morning arrived, gritty and loud. He considered ignoring the insanity, but every delivery route seemed to conspire. Whichever customer he visited, he passed another strategic dot from the mental map. The lights winked at him as if taking attendance. By afternoon, he'd decided, perhaps stupidly, that if gods trusted him, he had to trust them back. He gathered equipment, a phone, power bank, duct tape, a pair of insulated gloves, pilfered from his uncle's workshop, and his old university ID, useful for bluffing as maintenance. He also loaded 2 extra canisters of fuel into the Vespa's compartment. The city's hills showed no mercy. At 1740, he parked outside Termini's southern bus ramp. The place throbbed with commuters, tourists, and pickpockets, rotating like planets around the marble facade. He looked for anything irregular and found it immediately. 3 black vans idled illegally on the bus lane, hazard lights on. Their drivers wore grey boiler suits, each stamped with the golden wolf of Rome's municipal utility company. Except Matteo knew the actual logo used a stylized lightning bolt. He rolled closer, pretending to check his GPS. The side door of the nearest van slid open. Inside, coils of thick copper wire, sledgehammers, and, most ominously, gilded fragments of what looked like ceremonial armor. A woman emerged carrying a crowbar. She was middle-aged, hair braided tight, eyes like chipped obsidian. Mercury's voice hissed in Matteo's skull. Livia Argentina, classicist, fanatic, leads the Serval vs Flaff from ramp. The circle of fury, Matteo swallowed and feigned interest in a parking meter. The woman barked orders in Latin, flawless. Rapid. Her crew snapped to attention, spreading toward 3 signal boxes at the edges of the plaza. She wanted simultaneous action. The rush hour crescendo peaked. Buses exhaled. Mopeds screamed. The sky turned the color of rusty coins. Matteo's phone buzzed, no caller ID, only the wing-graved emoji, he answered. Phase 1, Mercury said, voice crackling like shortwave. Intercept their tools. If the filaments break, I cannot cage Mars again. How many followers? Matteo whispered. 9, but they wield fear. Break momentum and the crowd neutralizes them. Easy for a god to say. Remember your trade. A courier goes where others can't. The line cut. Matteo flexed his fingers in the insulated gloves, kicked the Vespa into motion, and headed for the farthest signal box least guarded. 2 acolytes knelt by the cabinet, unscrewing its panel. Matteo braked beside them. Ciao delivery for municipality Ada. He waved a random clipboard. Urgent firmware patch. They looked up, confused. One held a laptop strewn with occult runes around the keyboard. Not expected, he muttered. Check your manifest. Matteo offered the clipboard while the man examined it. Matteo slapped duct tape over the laptop's charging port and yanked the power. Screens died. The second acolyte lunged with a screwdriver, but Matteo flung the clipboard into his face, wheeled the scooter around, and rocketed off. Shouts roared behind, horns answered ahead, as if the entire boulevard declared him the puck in a living pinball table. At the next intersection, he found the cabinet already open, wires exposed like intestines. An acolyte unspooled copper to short the circuits. Matteo skidded close, kicked the wire reel so it rolled into traffic, then snagged the woman's wrist before she could retrieve it. Safety violation, he scolded, twisting until the crowbar dropped. He wasn't strong, but adrenaline served. She cursed in Latin. He answered in Romanesque profanity, and escaped. 2 down, but the third closest to the main thoroughfare was guarded by Livia herself. She stood serene, crowbar braced across her shoulders, as if posing for a coin's relief. Around her, 3 henchmen hammered the base of a massive pole, red lantern trembling. Pedestrians sidestepped, assuming maintenance. The smell of burnt ozone rose. Matteo idled across the street, brain firing useless ideas. Could he call police? Too slow. Could he ram the pole to knock them away? He'd break his spine. He needed a sign, literally. Above Livia, the green pedestrian icon flickered, then shifted into a winged sandal. Mercury again. The crosswalked signal snapped to go. Matteo accelerated, using the legal walk cycle as shield. Drivers halted. He zipped between bumpers, jumped the curb 20 meters from Livia, and braked so hard the scooter fishtailed, spraying gravel. Henchmen scattered. Matteo vaulted off and landed beside the main breaker they were prying open. "Echo! You forgot the calibration diode," he improvised, waving the discarded crowbar as if inspecting equipment. Livia watched, amused. "Young man," she said, accent flawless yet archaic, "you play the fool convincingly. But I read auguries as others read Facebook. Mercury rides your shoulders and his stench is betrayal." She extended a hand. "Give him up." "Sorry, lady, union rules," she sighed. "If you loved travel, you should know war is the only engine that never stalls." Her henchman resumed bashing. Matteo smelled hot metal, the red lens above spiderwebbed. Inside, a spark twisted like something alive, hungry. Mercury's voice thundered across every speaker in Matteo's consciousness. "Last resort." The mental map rewrote, highlighting a maintenance conduit under the intersection. A Roman aqueduct retrofitted for fiber optics. If Matteo could flood current backward through the feed line, he might overload the system, retrapping Mars before the glass shattered. But that meant plunging into dank tunnels while henchmen hammered. He grabbed his scooter, darted into an alley, located a cast-iron grate exactly where the map promised. He pried it up with Olivia's crowbar, wrestled the Vespa through the opening barely fitting, and dropped into darkness, buoyed by the smell of ancient water and modern sewage. Phone flashlight on, he rolled along a crooked path where brick arches sweated history. Cables lined the walls. Occasional LEDs glowed like winking salamanders. Mercury guided with terse commands. Left, descend, junction. Finally, he reached an electric substation, old graffitied, humming with forbidden life. He located the feed labeled Via Marsica, someone's joke or omen. He fumbled the gloves on, unclamped the grounding bar, and jammed Livia's crowbar between the positive bus and the nearest drainpipe. Sparks erupted. The tunnel rang like a bell. Somewhere overhead, tires screeched, and people screamed as every lamppost on the boulevard flashed blinding white. The god inside the red lantern bellowed a roar. Matteo felt in molars, not ears, then silence. He thought he might have died. But dripping water, the far thrum of trains, and his own ragged breath testified otherwise. Mercury spoke softly. "It worked. Mars slumbers." Matteo sagged against the Vespa. "And Livia?" "Restrained by panic. Authorities will blame power surge, yet she will return. The cabal is hydra-headed." Matteo spat sewer residue. "Then we keep fighting?" "Yes. Though tonight you deserve a faster mount." The maintenance tunnel shimmered. The Vespa's headlights sprouted silver feathers. Its paint turned liquid chrome. Matteo yelped as the vehicle lightened under him, wheels whispering off the ground. "Miracle, Mercury said, amused. "Alone from the messenger stable." Matteo grinned, despite bruised ribs. "Where to now?" "One more sight. Bologna at Ponte Milvio. Traffic thin, but terror looms. We strike before midnight, when the Gnostis lovers hang padlocks on the bridge, and war would make their vows mockery." The scooter, the living comet, rocketed down the tunnel, following fresh luminous arrows Mercury painted across reality. A hatch opened onto the Tiber's banks. Matteo soared out, wheels skimming water, moonlight shearing off ripples. The eternal city unfolded, domes and ruins glowing like coals in deep hearths. She aimed north, adrenaline returning like a loyal dog. Ponte Milvio materialized. Stone arches, lamplight, couples embracing against parapets. Livia was astonishingly fast. Sea already stood at midspan. cloak swirling though wind was mild, in her hands an orb of swirling red light. "The War Guard's embers," Mercury warned. "If they find a host, Bellona will stride again." Matteo landed 60 meters away. For a heartbeat, he was only one more biker admiring the romance. Then Livia hurled the orb skyward. It burst like a crimson firework. Sparks rained toward the curious crowd. Matteo revved and launched. Time dilated. Mercury bent photons. Each spark slowed, glowing cochineal in syrupy air. Matteo weaved between them, collecting the fragments in his gloves. They burned ice-cold, paradoxical. Livia spotted him and shrieked, "Fury thrive!" She drew a knife of traffic-light glass, edges neon. She lunged as he braked, inches away. Metal met metal. The crowbar, the same that served sabotage, now parried divinity-forged glass. Sparks cascaded into the river. They hissed out like insulted snakes. Matteo deflected, countered, but he was tiring. Livia's blade kissed his forearm, slicing fabric and flesh. Pain bloomed. Mercury whispered, "Cast the sparks into her shadow." Matteo glanced down. Livia's shape stretched long under bridge lanterns. He unclenched the cold fragments and scattered them across the silhouette. Immediately, they sank, as if into quicksand. Livia screamed. Her body stiffened, veins lighting red. Bellona's embers refused a reluctant host. They devoured instead. A rush of wind extinguished every lamp on the bridge. When glow returned, only Livia's empty boots remained. Tourists gaped, phones held high but capturing nothing, their cameras strangely blank. Matteo collapsed against the scooter. His arm dripped blood onto worn cobbles. "Done," Mercury said, voice like sunrise on water. "Bellona reprisoned. The cabal broken for now." "Will the god stay inside the lights forever?" Matteo asked. "We are part of the city's pulse. Some cages gnaw, some cradle. Yet perhaps the voice softened when humankind no longer needs traffic laws. We will walk free without havoc." "Not soon, I admit." Matteo laughed weakly. "Self-driving chariots, maybe." "Just so. Until then, we owe you." A faint gleam enveloped his wounded arm. Skin knitted, ache dissolved. "Compensation complete. Further, should you ever require green lights on demand, call my name." Perks of the job. He swung onto the now ordinary Vespa. The feathers had vanished, but it purred like new. "But deliveries start at 8. "Don't blink me awake too early." "I am the god of dawn travelers," Mercury warned, yet there was humor in the static. "Rest now, Matteo of the quick wheels. Rome's roads remain yours." The night resumed ordinary noises. River slosh, distant sirens, lovers' laughter. Matteo kick-started his scooter, took the first exit south, and watched as every traffic light ahead turned green exactly when he reached it, carving a private emerald corridor through the eternal city.